sharing, it will just load the camera and we can do the camera-based stuff instead. So we'll just have to do that right at the end. So today's seminar is on picking model horses for showing. So the aim had been to start off with going through a few models and giving you guys the chance to have a look at some models that are all the same breed and make a decision based on criteria as to which one you would pick. But we're going to shift that and we're going to do that at the end as long as Facebook allows us to do. But I'm still going to start by talking about what you're looking for in a show horse. We're then going to talk about how to create a points-based system. And I know when we did our model horse spreadsheet, that I'm sure you've all been working on cataloguing your model horses since then. I did promise that we would do that. So we're going to go back and we're going to cover that, and I'm going to talk you through how to create a points-based system that you can use for your model horses. We're then going to talk about what you do if you've got really large collections, how to add a bit of variety, and how to keep records of who you've shown and who you haven't shown. And then we're going to talk about sort of some other ways that you can pick models. So we're going to have a look at some previous pictures, and we're going to have a look at some of my best horses. So hopefully you can all hear me. No one has sort of said, why am I just staring at a blank screen? This is insane. So I hope I'm not talking to nothingness and that it's all going well. And we will start with looking at points. So one of the best ways that we can keep a record of our model horses is to create points-based system for them. So for a points-based system, basically what we're doing is we are keeping a record of how many points that horse has accumulated. So over here, you can see, I'm going to take it all off green because it doesn't need to be green anymore. Over here, you can see my points. And I've got my own scoring system, but a lot of people will have their own scoring system, and a lot of organizations have a scoring system as well. So hopefully this is all making sense. I'm really concerned about sound because my computer can be really dodgy, so I'm just going to double check sound. I'm really sorry about that. But that's just me being really paranoid. Sorry. I'm really paranoid about this. Every time I do a screen share, my computer's not picking up sound. Sorry, I'm really bad at doing these. Right, so over here you can see the points that I award. And as you can see, you've got higher points for higher placings. So we start down here with 6th place, and 6th to 1st are obviously just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A lot of shows will do best of breed and group winner, so I award 8 points for that because that's not quite the same as getting a champion. Then here we've got little champions, so like divisional champions. We've obviously got top 10s there for BMX. And then we've got section champions and reserve champions. So that would be like original finish or custom finish. And we've got overall up here as well. It's worth noting that for BMX, I double these points. So if you get first at BMX, you'll get 12 points. If you get a group winner at BMX, you actually get 16 points. If you get top 10, you get 50 points, etc., etc. So you get more points for placing at BMX than you do at normal shows. So what I do is I take my horse's placings. So say I have a horse and at a show it's got 1st place, then it got divisional champion, and then it got section reserve. So I would then add those points up, and I keep my horses' names down here. So say if we've got Diesel, and Diesel has added 6 points on, so we'd add 6 on to 85, so that'd be 91. He then got a divisional champion, so we'd add an extra 20 points on, so that's 111, not 11. There we go. And then he got a section reserve, so section reserve is 40, so then he'd get 151 points. I then have this extra column. So this you have to do manually. You can create formulas to do this for you. I just do it manually. I find it quicker and easier. And then you can use Control and F to search for your horse if you've got a horse that you're trying to put points for. So if I wanted Frederico, for example, I just Control F. So you've got your top points, and we'll go through filters in a bit. So I know who's got the most points. I know what their total points is. I then do average points, and we did talk about this a little bit afterwards. So I type in the number of shows that they've attended. So Diesel's just attended another show, so we'll take that up to 5. And then I do average points, and this is a really simple formula, and you can see the formula here. So all you type in is equals, and then you just need to divide the number of points. So I click on that square there, and then we just do a dash for divide, and then the number of shows attended. And then we can press enter, and that will give us the horse's average points. And this is really important because sometimes a horse can have lots and lots and lots of points, but maybe isn't placing anymore. So if we look down here, we can see this horse here does actually have a lot of points, but actually she's been to quite a lot of shows. So her average is much lower than, say, Diesel, who's accumulated lots and lots of points over not very many shows. So you want to be having a think about that. And this horse here has obviously done very well at one show, but that will then, if you then take her to the next show, so this is sort of like, this is how I'm choosing which horses I'll take. If I then take her to the next show, that might go down. She might not place at the next show. And then she'll just drop out. So what do I use this for? Well, obviously I can use this to tell me who's got the highest average, and I can use this to tell me who's got the highest number of points. Now to do these filters here, we just select the columns we want to filter. We click data, which is up here, and then we just click this button here, which is filter. So that'll turn them off and that'll turn them on. And then I can just click here and I can go largest to smallest, and it will filter them from largest to smallest. You'll see I have a line here, and that's because my show string are my 10 best horses for that finish. So this is all original finish. So I know at the next show, I'm going to be taking these 10 horses with me. Now, obviously this will change because maybe Raja doesn't place at the next show. So he has 4 shows and no placings. But maybe, you know, someone like Hermes down here, maybe he goes and he gets a first place. So maybe he goes up. But then obviously he's going to have another show. So will that affect his average? Interesting. And then I can filter it again. So I can have a look and I can filter it again, and you can see that it's going to change. So after each show, I can keep these records and I can change it and I can see who's doing best. I can also see who has accumulated the most points. So you can see how much that's changed it, because actually if we look at like this horse here, although he's got lots and lots of points, he hasn't really placed at shows in a very, very long time. So he's attended a lot of shows. And if they attend lots and lots of shows, they're obviously going to accumulate more points. And that's why having this average is really, really good. So this is the first way you can pick horses for showing. You've got points, and you can either use who's got the most points, particularly if you're starting off, but you can also use average points. Now, I only started using average points a year ago, and it took me a long time to go back and count how many horses have been to each show. So I'm going to show you now how to do that. And I did have this hyperlinked, but I obviously closed the window, so I apologize for that. So you're going to have to see all of my files, which is really not good for GDPR, is it? Okay, this is very exciting for all of you guys. Okay, so I keep a record of all of my live show lists, and I've got that record. I've only got it back to 2011 because I had computer issues in 2010 and I lost all my documents. So anything prior to 2011 I don't have, which includes all my university work and my dissertation, all that kind of stuff, but we don't talk about that. So if I want to find out how many shows a horse has attended, I'm going to use this search function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to type in, and you can see I've been doing it previously, the horse's name. So if I want Bobby Joe, I can do that. And what you can see from that is it will tell me every single time it's picked up a hit in one of my show lists. And if I just move that out of the way of the Facebook button, you can see there I can use it really quickly and say 25 items. Now I do need to manually go through this a little bit because I tend to have double entries for BMAX, because I'll have my horse entry form and then I'll have my own list, because my own list differs from the horse entry form. So you might have to just double check there. And obviously if you've got horses with the same name, that's a bit problematic. But use their show name, use your prefix, and then it won't pick up documents if you've got them in the same folder of things like this. So that's a really quick and easy way of doing it. You can see here Bobby Joe's actually 24 because I've had that double for BMX, but you can add those numbers in. And so it's really, really quick and easy to do it if you're going back and you're redoing it and you're not starting off from scratch. So don't worry too much about that. Obviously, writing up their points is really time consuming. I completely overhauled my points-based system probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, because you never used to get these little divisional championships. And I felt that getting like 50 points, well, actually, I think it was like 25. It was all the points were just really messed up because of them. So I went back and completely redid all my points. It is possible to do. It's quite a good sort of project. It'd be a really good project at the moment because obviously there's no live shows. So obviously you've got sort of pretty much probably until November, December before your horses are going to be going to shows again, if that, maybe not until next year. So this is quite a good project to be doing now. And just spending a few hours each evening, a few hours at the weekend, set yourself a target. I'm going to do like 50 horses and I'm going to do it. And once you've done it, you then just need to type up your results after each show and just keep on top of it. It's the actual doing it, if you haven't done it yet and you've been showing for years, is quite time consuming. You could say, well, I'm only going to do like the last 5 years. I'm not going to go all the way back. So that's another option that you could think about. And obviously it also depends on how good your records are already. Obviously mine are quite good and they're quite detailed, but yours might not be. And obviously I have all my different sections down here. So I have them separate for custom, for AR, for CTF, for commercial, and for performance. Now, I don't use this spreadsheet anymore. And the reason I don't use this spreadsheet anymore, but it does have this on it, which is why I want to show you it, is because I've actually got this in my massive horse spreadsheet. And I showed you this when we did our horse cataloguing seminar. So I have exactly the same thing. All of these guys here have never been to a show. How sad for them. I know, so sad. But I have exactly the same thing. So you can see here that actually the top list, so this is, I've already got this filtered in order. And this is CTF. We'll go back to OF because we were looking at OF before. The top list going from diesel down, all those horses above diesel have never been to a show. It's a bit different. And that's because some of these guys have been to a show since I moved it all over. But you can see exactly the same thing. I just have on here, I just have exactly the same. I have the total points, the number of shows, and their average. So you can see Diesel did place at the next show. He didn't do as well as I said he did, but he's still the top one. I also keep a record here of whether they've qualified for BMX or not. So 18, 19, 20, 19, 20, 21, 20, 21, 22. And also there's going to be 4 columns, which is going to just annoy me. I'm going to have to add an extra column because obviously next year's BMX is going to have 4 years worth of horses that are eligible for qualification. I have in here whether they've qualified or not. So I literally just put yes. So you can see out of my top ones, most of them have qualified this year. But some of them will have qualified from last year. This one, I think, is an anomaly. I think something's gone wrong with the record keeping, which is why she's in there. But you can see some of these haven't, actually. I think this one's an anomaly as well. And you can actually have a look through and you can sort of say, oh, have they qualified? Have they not? The wonderful thing about putting it on this spreadsheet is that I can see who my best horses are for particular breeds. So say I want to enter a horse in an Appaloosa class. I've got no Appaloosas qualified. And I'm like, oh, I really want to qualify an Appaloosa for BMX. I can use my filters and remember, go back and watch that seminar we did on how to create horse records. And I can pick. I can go, okay, who's my best Appaloosa? Okay, well, according to this, those haven't been to shows. So we'll just double check and go down to the ones that actually got points. There we go. That's the top one. So the top Appaloosa is Fletcher. So I can go, actually, maybe Fletcher's the one to take. Or I could say, okay, Buttercup and Dead Heat. Buttercup's a foal, so maybe not that. But Dead Heat's never been to a show. So maybe I'll take her. Oh, okay, actually, I'm going to look at that. Yes, I have qualified one. I've qualified Fletcher, but I haven't got any others qualified. So who else am I maybe going to take? So we can use that to help us make determinations about who we're going to take to shows. Particularly looking at who you have and haven't qualified is really useful for when you're entering shows that are like the last ones before BMX, and that's quite a good thing to do. And so we're going to have a look now at adding a bit of variety and the other way that I keep my lists. And this is really, I like this because this is really visual, and that's why I still keep it. this is a really good way of seeing who's qualified for BMX, but also who you've shown and who you haven't shown. So if we go across to Appaloosa, because we were just looking at that, this is a list of, obviously we're on OF, all of my OF Appaloosas that are catalogued. You can see two things here. First of all, you'll notice all these green squares. All of these green squares are horses that have BMX qualified. But I only keep that record for this year. So these are only ones that have got tickets for 2021-22. Obviously, some of them might have tickets for older ones. So I just keep 2021-22 marked on this. This is quite nice because it's quite a good visual. So I know, for example, that I've got one Appaloosa qualified, but if I look here, it doesn't look like I've got any quarter horses on 2021-22 tickets. So I might, if it was coming up to BMX, I might want to be focusing on getting some quarter horses to shows so that I've got some of them qualified. And you can see the same with Donkey Mule Exotic. Obviously, normally this time of year, this would be a lot more full, but there haven't been a huge number of 2021-22 shows. So you can see if we look at all of them, none of them are massively full for 2021-22 qualifications. Wow, plastic CTMs are really empty. But you can have a look here and you can see this one's a bit more full because this is what I do. We're going to ignore Lily. You see that's a little bit more full. Okay, so how do I decide using this, who I'm going to take to shows? Well, I'm not just going to use it to tell me that this horse is already qualified. That's really useful because I can say, well, actually, I don't want to take that to a show. It's already qualified. That's done. But I can also use it to see who I took last time. And you'll see I've got these little lines. And basically, what I can do is I can say, okay, I'm entering an Appaloosa class. That's the horse I last took. So next time, if I wanted to take 3, I would highlight all of these 3. And then I would click no border. And then I would click bottom border. And I'd take all those 3 to the show. And I know that at the last show, I took those 3. In terms of picking using this, when you've got a really large collection, sometimes it can be quite fun to add a bit of variety. So what I do is I do a randomizer. So I do a random list. So I have a list of all of these things at the top. So all these different sections I've got all the way along the top. And I put it into a randomizer. And I'll take my 20 best horses, but then I'll also take 20 random ones. And they'll be the next one down on the list on here. So that's a really fun way of just adding a bit of variety and taking someone a little bit different to a show each time. So you're working your way down these lists. You can also keep records of, and this little Facebook thing is going to annoy me. You can also keep records of all your new ones. So I keep a list here of all my new models. And once I've taken them to one show, they get deleted. But this is quite good if you're the kind of person who often gets a lot of models and maybe forgets to take them to shows, or maybe you're like me and you have a December birthday. So over that December, January break, you accumulate a ton of model horses and you need to just write a list so you know who's taken to shows and who's hasn't. And also you might have lots that are very similar. So you might have lots that are like decorators, for example. If you're me, you can see there's at least 3 decorators there. So this is quite a good way of making sure that you're taking all of your new ones to the shows. It's worth noting that's a medallion, which is why it's under workmanship and not all of these ones. But you can also keep your performance like this, and you can keep your workmanship as well. And obviously those will be split not by breed, but by colour. You can have your medallions in there and stuff as well. So this is a really nice way of keeping a record of all your horses, what sections they go in, and whether they've qualified or not. So you can see here, I might not want to qualify any more decorators for this division because I've already qualified quite a few. And the thing is, if you're looking at BMX as being your ultimate goal, you don't want to be showing loads of horses in the same class because there's only going to be one winner of that class. You want to try and spread your luck out a little bit. And a lot of it is luck when it comes to BMX. It depends on the judge on the day. So you want to try and spread those entries out a little bit. So a spreadsheet like this will be really, really good at helping you see where you've qualified quite a lot and where you maybe haven't qualified very many. But it also is going to really depend on the shows. Most of the shows, I went to at the end of last year and this year were specialist shows. So that obviously impacted the number of qualifications. If you've just been to shows that don't have decorator classes, that's going to impact. So there's lots of things that can impact this, but this is a really good way of keeping that record. So the next thing we're going to talk about is having a look at what is winning elsewhere. And this is quite a good way of, particularly if you're new to the hobby, of getting an idea of what horses might win. So first of all, we're going to have a look at our data points. So this spreadsheet records Supreme Champions going back to, I think, 2006, 2007, 2006. It's not complete. There's a lot of missing data because it's only shows I've been to or shows where I've seen the photographs or shows where I've remembered to do this. But it is quite interesting because it does tell you sort of what's winning at the top level. So you could use this data and go, actually, the only horses I want to have are greys, pintos and bays. But obviously other colours do win. And obviously some of these colours are going to be rarer than other colours. And they're all going to influence each other because if what's winning are Appaloosas, then Appaloosa coloured horses are going to be winning. And the same with warm bloods tend to be that, I can tell you now, they're like greys and bays basically. And Mustangs can be all colours, paints can be all colours, but they're all pinto. So all that, those do influence that, obviously. So you can have a look at this data and you can say, okay, so artist resins are doing better than commercial chinas, for example. Greys are definitely doing better than duns and grullas don't seem to do very well. So, you know, grey, pinto, bay. You can also look breed-wise, warm bloods, Appaloosas, Mustangs, paints, thoroughbreds, Arabs, but then these more obscure breeds, again, there's going to be less of them at the show, but obviously they're not doing as well. Donkeys won't get you there. It's only ever been one. Sad times. I can tell you exactly which donkey that was as well. I've also got the breakdown here between in-hand and performance. Now, performance doesn't go into every Supreme, so that's not necessarily reliable, and obviously not every show has performance. I've also got brand, obviously ignore the artist resin, but you can see Breyers are doing better than stones in theory. Then you've got animal artistries. You can see that Rubberheads and Aquariums are both equal, but Copper Foxes are way below Breyers and stones. But also bear in mind this data only goes back to 2006. So Copper Foxes didn't exist in 2006. They only started in 2015. And the same with Rubberheads. So obviously then, and Aquariums, for that matter. So obviously they're not going to have done as well because they didn't exist for half that time, whilst Breyers and stones and animal artistries did. And then I've also got performance type as well. So from that you can see the, you know, maybe scene driven Western Trail. So this can give you a little bit of information, the data points, but what is also really helpful is just looking at photographs. And I've got some of these here so we can have a look through some winners. So these are some winners from BMX last year, and we're going to have a look at the OF large, OF small, and the CTF plastic divisions. And the reason we're going to look at those is because those are the things we all sort of have. So they're the more affordable price points. Pretty much everyone is going to have some of those in their collection. So they're a bit more obtainable, and obviously more of you are going to have a look. So you can have a look at what's winning to help you make decisions as to what you might show or what you might buy. The other reason I really like this is because the Supreme Champion was a regular run, really cheap model, but I also love her. She's a glossy bay. I love glossies. I'm way biased with glossies. So if you look at this, we might go, okay, actually, I don't need a really, really expensive horse. This is a regular run. It's slightly rarer than the matte version. Obviously, it's in really, really nice condition, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, hopefully, when Facebook allows me to swap to a camera, but we don't know if that's going to work. We've already talked about that. We can say, okay, so that mould, maybe a mould that we might want to add to our collection. So that mould is winning, so we can think particularly with OFs. That can influence maybe what customs we buy. Glossies, are glossies more popular? We might want to be thinking, okay, breed-wise, what breed was she shown as? We don't know from this photograph, but we can assume that probably a warm blood. So those are things we might want to think about. So if we look at the reserve, we're going up in price point a bit here. Premier Club model, not massively pricey. A really nice one. Interesting, they're both mares. Is that interesting? I don't know. Both moving. Again, we might want to think about breed. I show my one as a different breed, but she still does exceptionally well. So it's a really popular mould. So we want to think about mold. We might want to go, okay, maybe I'll add the regular run version of this to my collection. Maybe I'll get a custom, stuff like that. And the same thing with Reserved Reserve. Got another Premier model, Bristol. I like this model, but actually, they have the Seattle Soiree one. It's chestnut, the glossy one. Anyway, way nicer than this one, quite frankly. But again, we want to think about, well, what breed were they actually showing it as? Because that's going to influence how it places. Oh, look, it's my horse. So we're now going to look at the top 10. So obviously there's 7 top 10s, and those are in theory all equal. So another Premier model, an older Premier model. Obviously the beautifulest model on the table, and she was completely robbed of her win. So again, we might want to be thinking about, okay, well, they apart from one, they've all been mares so far. That's really interesting. Are the mare classes easier to win? Who knows? Interesting point. Again, we're going to think about, okay, well, just assume it's in really, really nice condition, but we might want to be thinking about this mold maybe is one we want to be adding to our collection. Think about what is it about the paintwork that the judge really liked above all of the others, things like that. So not a Premier model, but again, still one that's slightly harder to find. But again, on one of the newer molds, all of these are newer molds, unless you're new to the hobby, in which maybe Giselle isn't, but to me it's a newer mold. Again, colour-wise, breed-wise, what was it being shown as? All of that is really, really important. Again, it's a moving mold. This guy, oh, I love this horse. I was looking through these earlier and I'd completely forgotten this horse existed, and I'm going to steal him off whoever owns him. So this is our first Peter Stone. So the rest have all been Breyers. I mean, I think we can all agree that the paint job on this one is absolutely stunning. This is where we're going up in price point. I don't want to think about how much this horse cost, but it's definitely probably going to be a lot pricier than all of the others. But a really beautiful model. Again, glossy. And when we're thinking about championships, sometimes that glossy, that high impact colour can really, really help. Another on a same mold that we've seen before. So we might be thinking, okay, who are we going to pick? Well, actually, if I'm going model horse shopping, maybe I want to be thinking about the Giselle mold as an option because I've seen that 2 have won. So this is why looking through show pictures can be really helpful. Another newer-ish mold, Weather Girl, perfectly nice model, very nice. We talked about these in our judging clinic. I'm not a huge fan, but I have no dispute with it getting a top 10. Another Peter Stone, again, glossy, again, moving. These are all moving, which I think is really, really interesting, apart from that standing Morgan. Again, you're looking at a slightly higher price point. Oh, there's another photo of the same horse. That's a donkey. Ignore the donkey. Okay, so for micros, obviously we're going to be going down in price. So I think here, again, if we're thinking about mold, we're using this as a way to pick what horses we might be buying or what more horses we might be showing. The really interesting point here is the champion and the reserve are both the same mold. So they're both the chip stock horse. Really, really nice. Both custom colours, really pretty models. Glossy, not glossy. Interesting. It's the same horse 3 times. But then we get onto the reserved reserve, and we have your bog standard regular run Breyer stablemate. Obviously, this one's a bit harder to get because it's not a sort of standard UK release. But honestly, you can get these like dime a dozen. So again, thinking about it, well, do I need to be spending lots of money? You might want to be thinking about this in terms of custom as well. What molds might I want to get? One of these little guys can do really well. There's a picture of the same horse. This is Mad Boy. This is Shiloh. So now we're getting onto the stablemate club horses. Again, we've got a glossy model, and I do think the glossiness helps. Really nice condition. Again, we want to be thinking about breed choice. Interesting, we've got another warm blood. Lots of warm bloods do very, very well once they get to championship level, but remember the warm blood classes are extremely competitive. They're the most competitive classes, the OF warm bloods. So you've got to be keeping that in your mind as well. How easy is it going to be to get the first? This is another of mine, another Peter Stone chips. The chips seem to do really, really well. Again, thinking about breed, but this is just a regular Peter Stone chips. It didn't cost me that much money when I bought it. It's a bit of an older one, but still really, really nice. And another Stablemate Club model, another one of mine. I did quite well in this championship. Again, glossy, interesting. So this is Diesel. We already looked at Diesel earlier and saw that he's one of my best horses. Really nice model. Again, Stablemate Club, a bit more pricey, but not hugely so. This one is also a Stablemate Club horse. It's also glossy, so we will be thinking about that as well. Yeah, Marion says the Stone Chip Champion was expensive. I don't want to know how much it cost, Marion. I can imagine how expensive it was. Yes, very pricey. Stone chips are scaringly pricey for tiny things. I quite like this one because this is like your bog standard regular run Breyer. There is like nothing, I don't want to be mean to the horse. There's like nothing special about this horse, but this shows that when we're picking models, actually, if we look at condition, we've got a nice condition model. It doesn't have to be, you know, big pricey. It can be the kind of regular run Breyer that we've had since we've started collecting. Most kids will probably have this model. It's a nice common one. Another disturbingly expensive piece of Stone Chips, I'm sure. Again, glossy. Interesting, a mule. It's quite unusual to get them in the top 10, so that's quite nice. And another, okay, slightly rarer Breyer stablemate, but I just bought one for $7.50. So honestly, they're not massively pricey. Again, condition really important, but a really nice model. And something we could you definitely want to be thinking about customizing. If you can hack all that tack and stuff off, I bet that would look lush as a custom. Okay, so we're going to look at plastic CTF because that's nice and obtainable. This is one of my favorite collector molds, and you can completely see it why I got a champion. But again, I mean, you can get this guy on Amazon for like £8. You know, he's not a pricey model, but condition is what you're really looking for when you're trying to pick models to win. For plastic CTF, your condition is going to be your downfall. So condition and bendy legs are going to be your downfall. I like this one as well. Look, it's a little regular Schleich foal, nothing special. They are special. They're special to their owners, but you know what I mean? Anyone can get them. So this is quite interesting if we're looking through and we're looking for CTF models. All of these are going to have exceptionally good condition, but all of these are easily obtainable. I could go onto Amazon and buy 10 or 20 of most of these models. Some of them are a bit harder to get. The foal, every single year, a Mini Winnie or a Grand Champion foal will get a top 10 at BMX, or a champion in my case. And it is complete luck which one it is. It will vary every single year, but I highly recommend getting some qualified because every year one gets a top 10. So that's something you could think about, is actually what is winning. Okay, that is winning every single year. Mini Winnies do very well. Again, it's all about straight legs. There have been plenty of plastic CTF champions that are Mini Winnies and that are just come in things like blind bags. They're not anything special. They're not anything massively pricey. But you're looking at condition and you're looking at getting those legs straight. That's the most important thing. Very nice Safari. And another collector to end. So we've had a look at some previous show photos. So we've talked about how we can keep points on our own horses to pick them. We've talked about how we can keep lists and variety, making sure we're making a note of who's qualified. And we've talked about how we can go through previous show pictures to help us pick. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about what we would have talked about at the beginning. I'm going to talk first with the screen still up, and then I'm going to try and move it to camera. Now that might not work, and that's why I'm going to do the talking bit first, because then if it doesn't work, we've still talked through it. So if I'm picking a model for showing, I've thought about all those other things, but what am I actually looking for? I'm looking for three things. I'm looking for condition. Condition is really important, particularly if we wanted to be placing in championships. I'm looking for breed standard. Now, maybe that I'm also thinking about what breed I'm going to allocate. And remember, we did a seminar on that, so you can go back and watch that seminar to help you. I'm also looking for conformation. So for things like plastic CTF, bendy CTF, I want those legs straight. Straight legs are going to be what kills you in bendy and plastic CTF. In all of CTF, it's legs are everything. So in terms of condition, I want to check the whole model over to start with. So I'll give it a quick look over. There's no obvious rubs, marks, breaks, anything like that. Then I'm going to look at what I would call trigger points. And those are like things like tail tips, ear tips, and hoof tips. So those are the edges of the model. Ears and the edges of tails get rubbed all the time. And as a judge, I will always look at them because I know they get rubbed. So have a look at those. If you've got tiny little ear tip rubs, they're usually really easy to touch up. So don't worry too much about that because you could easily just touch them up. A little bit of black pastel will normally touch them up on a dark coloured horse. Really, really easy to do. So don't worry too much about that. I then want to look at the breed standard. So you might want to have the breed standard open in front of you. You might want to Google it. So you could Google, if we were looking for an Appaloosa, I could Google Appaloosa champion, and it will bring me up lots of pictures of Appaloosas that have won in hand. So I could look through those and look at my model and say, well, actually, do they look like each other? If you find reading that breed standard kind of hard to do. And then we want to look at the conformation. Now, conformation does vary from breed to breed. But obviously what you're looking for here, mainly when you're looking at model horses, is have a look at the legs. Have they got things like warped legs? So the legs nice and straight, everything pointing in the right direction, no knees turning in, no hooves turning out. There's no anatomy or biomechanical flaws in that mold. But your mold doesn't have anything that we call mold flaws. So it's come out of the mold like dodgy. It's got like a dent in the wrong place. Its eyes are a bit weird. Maybe the ear is a bit bent. It's usually legs. Honestly, it's always legs. I'm going to talk about legs so much, but as a judge, legs can be the be all and end all, particularly for CTF. So we're going to be looking at condition, breed, and conformation when we're going over a model. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to click this button. And we're going to click stop sharing, and we're going to hope that it goes to camera. Now this may not work, so if it doesn't, I'm really, really sorry. And what I will say before it doesn't, I'll do my usual announcements, which is to make sure to check out BreakFast Fun Week, register for our Zoom quiz, register, which is on Monday, register for our auction night, which is a week today. Market night stuff will go up today. That's going to be on Tuesday. We're having a seminar